That's one of those questions that gets brought up all the time. Is it nature or nurture that turns someone into a leader, and are leaders born or are leaders made? And the answer is both, because you and I both know there's some people that just have a lot of really good natural leadership characteristics and they have an easier time stepping up into a leadership position. There's some people that don't have those characteristics. And for me, it's like, you ever seen a video game where they have like your strength for a different character in a video game? They have this level, a strength level 9 and an intelligence level 7. They get all these rankings. Well, it's the same thing with leadership. And so there's different skills that you have to make you a good leader, whether it's being the ability to read people, the ability to articulate well, the ability to look at complex problems and get them solved. These are skills. And some people have higher levels in some of those skills than other people. And some people, when you start to train them, they can get better at some of those skills. And so, yes, you can get better. You start at a baseline, whatever that you are as a human being, you start there, and you can definitely improve. There's only one type of human being that can't improve as a leader, and that's the person that lacks humility. Because when someone lacks humility, you can't teach them. That's why I look at everyone with an open mind. I look at people with an open mind. So not only do I want you to be humble if you want to learn, but I'm looking at you with an open mind. I'm not looking at you, putting you in a box and thinking, oh, he doesn't really have this capability. I'm looking at you like, okay, let's hope he has the capability. And if he does, we're going to build on it. We're going to turn him into a solid leader. Well, humility is definitely the number one thing. But now if we start to talk about data, I'm going to look at what their track record's like. I'm going to look at what kind of person they were, where did they come from, what have they done before, did they play sports, were they successful, how were their grades? Now, obviously this for me is like a bad example because like I told you, I wasn't great at sports. My grades weren't great. Now, when I went to college, my grades were awesome, but that was later, right? If you would have looked at me coming out of high school, you said, I don't know about this guy. You probably wouldn't have hired me coming out of high school. You said, he doesn't have great grades, doesn't look that disciplined. You know what? We'll take a pass on this guy. However, and this is why you got to be careful. This is why leadership is so hard. Sure, you can get 70% right. You can get 80% right. There's 20% that you don't know what they're going to do. And that's up and down the chain of command. What I do is I have an open mind when I deal with people, and I slowly start to put responsibility on them and see where they take it. Relationships and trust are almost the same word, right? A relationship is something that we've built trust. Now, you can have a bad relationship, and what does that mean? That means there's no trust there. I don't trust you, we have a bad relationship. How do I build trust with someone? The way I build trust with people is I give them trust. So if you're working for me, I say, hey, I want you to do this mission, Patrick. Come up with a plan. I'm showing you that I trust what your plan's gonna be. Now, I'm gonna make sure that your plan is good. I'm gonna review it, but I'm gonna give you a lot of autonomy. I'm gonna give you trust. And when I give you trust, what's your reaction? You think to yourself, this guy trusts me. And then the way I build trust in reverse is when you make a mistake, instead of me jumping down your throat and hanging you out to dry, instead I say, okay, you know what? My fault, I should have given you better direction. Here's what we're gonna do next time. So now you look at me and you go, hey, I screwed this thing up and Jocko still trusts me. I trust him. And that's how I build trust. I give it.
You give it.
I give trust to build trust.
If I'm really putting an effort, but my plan maybe not the best plan, you're still going to give me second chances to work on it and get better at it?
I will micromanage you more. I can't trust you as much. We do a business deal or we're in business. I don't send you out with the biggest client I've got when I just met you and say, hey, I trust you. No, I give you a little client and I say, hey, go make this happen. And you come back and you say, hey, look, I did it. And I say, great. And you trust me a little bit more. Or maybe you screw that one up. And I say, okay, let me review. What'd you do? What mistakes got made? And you say, oh, well, I did this. And okay, we correct that. But I don't come down hard on you because I'm trying to build a relationship with you. Mm-hmm. If I come down hard on you, do you even want to work for me? Do you even want to be, if I come down, this is pathetic, you screwed this up, this is your fault, you're looking for another job. As if I say, okay, let's look at what we can do better. Then I'm building the trust. But you might be very trustworthy for many years, and then all of a sudden you go out and you do something underhanded with a client, you try and rip them off or rip me off. Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna have trust for me anymore. So if we start going out for dinner every night and then we're hanging around, we're having beers and all of a sudden we're bros, but we come into work on Monday and I say, hey, you know what? I want you to get started on this project. And you go, come on, man, I don't want to do that project. And all of a sudden I feel awkward. So I got too close. The other side is, I don't know you at all, don't know what drives you, don't know what your motivations are, don't know that you got a sick kid or a wife that's giving you problems or whatever the case may be, and I don't know that. So now when I come in and say, hey, get this project done, and you go, come on, man, and I don't realize that there's things going on in your life. So I have to balance this dichotomy, and it's not just with relationships, it's with everything, because I just talked about micromanagement, right? Mm-hmm. If I micromanage you and I don't let you make any decisions yourself, well, you're never gonna step up and learn how to lead because you don't get to make any decisions for yourself. If I don't manage you at all, all and you don't know what direction to go in, well, now you don't know what you're doing and you're lost with no direction. So that's problematic. So I got to balance those two. It's got to be in the middle. That's a constant theme all the time. I just got done literally today with the final edits for my next book that I wrote with Leif. And the name of that book is The Dichotomy of Leadership. Because as we continue to work with leaders with our consulting company, these are the problems that they have. They don't balance it well. And a lot of times they don't even recognize that they need to balance, right? And it's one of the things I make a joke about it in the new book, the title Extreme Ownership. It's very powerful and it definitely exemplifies and clarifies that you need to take ownership of what's going on in your world. They start applying that extreme idea into other things. Like I'm gonna be extreme in my discipline, or I'm gonna be extreme in the way I talk to people. That doesn't work as a leader. It just doesn't work. A leader has to be balanced. For me, it's about awareness. And once, a lot of people aren't even aware, right? They aren't aware of the fact that they can get too close. They aren't aware of the fact that they can be too far away. And they aren't aware of the indicators, right? And by the way, this goes through everything. Like as a business leader, right, you got to take risk. If you take too much risk, what happens? You fail. If you take no risk, you don't grow and you fail as well. There's so many examples. Here's another good one. Communicating in a direct manner. Can you be too direct with your people? Everyone says, no, you got to tell them what's going on. No, actually, you can be too direct. You can be too direct with your people and you can make them defensive. You can make them gun shy, right? So you have to find a balance. Now, can you be not direct enough? Absolutely, you can be not direct enough. If all I'm saying to you is like, start lifting your numbers up a little bit, that'd be helpful. That's not direct enough. I need to actually say, but if I go, look, if you don't get your numbers up, you're fired. Well, that's too direct. Up in the military and seeing the way other people react to leadership and seeing someone that's a super hard ass that comes down strong on everyone and seeing what that produces, because it doesn't produce good results. You know, when I first started doing this, when I first started my leadership consulting company, one of the very first clients I had, I'm talking to the CEO on the phone and he says, I can't wait you to come here and whip my people into shape. And I said, you know, if you're looking for someone to whip your people into shape, you should really look for someone else because I'm not going to whip anyone into shape. And by the way, whipping people into shape doesn't work. It doesn't turn them into what you want them to do. It doesn't make them, it's like a dog. You beat a dog, sure, it'll get off the couch right now and you can beat it when it barks and you can beat it when it does something else wrong, but eventually you just have a broken dog that's not going to protect your house anymore. You have to balance it. And you talk about military leadership, and on my podcast I talk about military leadership all the time, and I go very deep with all kinds of historical famous military leaders, but the most kind of leaders that were considered to be the harshest and most disciplinary, they always, all of them, have a side to them that is very soft and really knows how to connect with people. I mean, I just did a couple podcasts on Chesty Puller, a famous Marine, the most famous Marine ever. And he's known as a complete hard-ass disciplinarian. But when you read about the way he treated his troops, he loved those guys and they knew it, and he could be hard on them. And even though he's being hard on them, he had a way of making that connection, and he knew how to balance that dichotomy of being too hard and being too soft. So what I think is important is to start to recognize the signs of when you're going too far in one direction or the other. So if you're working for me and I'm looking at you and I'm telling you what to do and you're showing no initiative, right? You're coming into work and you're waiting for me to come in and you're waiting with your pen and paper. You want to do a good job. Yeah. And when I tell you what to do, you go out and you execute it, but I'm not seeing any initiative from you. That's an indicator to me that I'm micromanaging you and I'm giving you too much direction and I'm not letting you grow. That worked for me. And this is when I was a young radioman. I was a radioman of platoon. I had a secondary radioman. And he was he wasn't too confident with what was going on. He didn't really know quite what to do. And so I'd give him some guidance and he wouldn't make it happen. He wouldn't know how to figure it out. So every day I started giving him a yellow sticky that said check boxes and what I wanted him to do that day. And I would give it to him and he would nail it. He'd knock it out of the park. But the next day I'd come in and instead of him thinking, oh, well, I had to do this yesterday, maybe I should do it today, he didn't want to think that. He got in the habit of waiting for me to give him a yellow sticky that said what he needed to do on it. So I hadn't developed any initiative from it. So I realized, you know what? I got to stop doing that. So then I started saying, hey, you tell me what you're going to do tomorrow. He's taken aback. Like, what do you mean? You tell me what operation we got coming up. You tell me what you're going to do tomorrow. And then he started growing and getting that initiative. And again, this happens, another good one, you have your company, you go into a meeting, you show up 10 minutes late to a meeting for whatever reason. There's 8 people in the meeting and they're sitting there like this with their notebooks waiting for you to come in. So you're 10 minutes late, they've just been sitting there waiting for you. They are being micromanaged and they don't have any initiative. Other side of the spectrum, you show up 10 minutes late for your meeting. There's supposed to be 8 people in there, there's 4 left. The other 4 took off, 2 of them are talking about something, and 2 of them are starting to plan a project that you don't know anything about, that you don't even want them to do. That means you're not managing them enough. Because what you should see is you show up 10 minutes late for a meeting, the second person in the chain of command is in there, and he says, hey, Patrick, we already started. I'll debrief you afterwards if you just want to take a seat and listen up. And okay, Mike, why don't you go over that again? So somebody took initiative, took control, and stepped up and led. And you should be, hey, great, you know what? Debrief me later. I'm going to leave. You don't even need to be there anymore.